The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, I will say this. We're the ones that encourage you to like and share them on social media and with all your friends, because it's time now for independent insurance agent Rudy Howard to present the African American scene on WPSL Monday nights for a change, usually on Wednesday, but until we finish up with this season of IRSC Basketball, it's going to be Mondays for a while. And now, here's your host, the one and only Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. It's good to be with you on a Monday night. I didn't even have to wait a whole week to get back to you. I've been so crazy busy. People calling me and asking me questions and me helping them figure out what kind of plans to get. And it's funny, I belong to this golf group, and I even had guys calling me from other states who just trust me and go, would you just at least tell me what I should be doing? And I take the time to tell them, even though I can't place the business for them because of our relationship, I take the time to tell them. Let me just remind you, though, that right now is open enrollment for the marketplace. And for those of you that didn't know, President Biden made some pretty substantial changes back in April. And so people in the past that may not have been eligible for subsidy are now eligible for subsidy. And some people who were getting subsidies are getting more subsidies. I wrote a HMO plan for a lady who used to be my water aerobics teacher, and I got her a plan for $0. She pays $0 premium. So that's pretty good. So if you got a question about your marketplace, I do the Medicare insurance, but if you got question about your marketplace insurance, I can help you with that too. And my phone number is 475-8856. Two things have kind of emerged since last Tuesday. One is that we passed the infrastructure plan, which I am really happy about, but we didn't pass the Build Back Better plan. Now, I want to talk about that because you're constantly being lied to, and I feel like it's my duty to try and straighten the lies out, and it makes me furious about the lies that you're told. The second lie is about this critical race theory. And, I've talked about this now on a couple of shows recently. What I want you to understand about the critical race theory thing is, and I may have touched on this in the past, but I looked it up. And, in the Brown versus Board of Education, one of the things in the testimony that helped to bring about that decision, they did the black and white dial test. Okay? And that test was updated again in 2020. In the Brown versus Board, they did it with black kids that attended an all-black school, white kids that attended an all-white school, and then they had them look at the dials and say, which one was better than the other one? Which one did you trust more? And even the black kids picked the white dial. In the 2020, a person who was doing her doctoral thesis on the same study, she used an integrated setting, figuring that maybe the reason why the pick was what it was is because the settings were not integrated. She got the same results. So what does that tell you? And I'm going to tell you something that we have to deal with as black parents that some of you don't. If you are fortunate enough, as I have been, to make a decent living and live in a nice area and where there's not a lot of black people, your kids will grow up surrounded by white people. That's not a bad thing. Let me first make that statement. That's not a bad thing. But here's what happens. And it not only happened to me, it happened to my sister too. My son came home and said, "Why do I have to be black?" Imagine that. Imagine you would have to deal with that. Now, where do you think that comes from? That comes from all of the information bombarding him from all manners and directions about who he is. So what he and you know what? My wife and I have talked about it, and Cliff and I have talked about it. They are making a conscious effort now, more than any other time in my lifetime, to have integrated commercials. White guys with black girls with white guys. It's a real concentrated effort. And over the long haul, it's going to have an impact. Because what I'm trying to tell you, when they're telling you this crap about critical race theory, part of what's happening is it is a problem that black folks have to deal with their children. Because in order to be successful, whether it's a football player, a basketball player, baseball player, and the one example that I like to use when I oftentimes go out and talk to youth is a baseball player. And I go out and when I'm talking, I say to them, if a baseball player hits 300, that's pretty doggone good, isn't it? And they go, yeah, you got a guy that's in the professional leagues and he's hitting 300, that's awesome. I said, it is? Yeah. I said, now let me tell you what that means. 70% of the time he's unsuccessful. They always sit back in their chair and they look at me. And I said, now, why do I tell you that? Imagine how much self-esteem and confidence you have to keep going up to that plate to hit that ball when you're failing 70% of the time to get 30% success. And you can see the eyes and the faces in the room. They go, I said, but here's the key. Two things are taking place there. Number one, self-confidence. Where does self-confidence come from? It comes from understanding who you are and in believing who you are. Okay? Number two, self-esteem. You know who you are and you feel good about who you are. That's why last week when Ken said to me, you were really crushed by the person not hiring you and you thought it was because you were black. I said, no, I wasn't. I felt bad for them that they didn't get me. Now, he found that hard to believe, but what he doesn't understand is I really believe that. I believe that from the bottom of my heart. They made a mistake not hiring me because I would have helped make them more successful. That is what you have to have inside of you. That comes from your surrounding, that comes from your training, that comes from an understanding of your identity. So when you are denying black children, especially black children that live in Port St. Lucie or Palm City, that are growing up in a predominantly white environment an opportunity to understand who they are, you're affecting their self-esteem. You're affecting their confidence. If you want to call up and dispute me, I feel free. That number is 340-1590. That's 340-1590. I welcome you to tell me I'm wrong. Please feel free to call up and say I don't know what I'm talking about and that I'm all wet and I'm just uninformed. Do that for me, please. Call me up, tell me that. Because you have not had to have that conversation with your kid, because I did, and my sister did. So, when you complain about critical race theory, you're trying to protect the white kids while at the same time being detrimental to the black and brown kids in your community. I want you to think about let me give you another example. Let's just think about this. When we grew up, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody. When we grew up, the Indians were pieces of crap, right? The cowboys always went out and they shot the Indians. The Indians were accused of scalping the settlers.
Yeah, and we've seen the arrows hit the chest and all the,
Yeah.
I remember those.
Yeah. So now imagine if you're an Indian kid growing up, and in our growing up years, cowboys were a very, very prominent part of the movie genre back then, Cliff, as you recall.
And most of us probably wouldn't want to put up with them anyway.
Right, exactly. Okay.
They were a bunch of gunslingers.
So those Indian kids grew up thinking they were bad people. They were bad people. They went out and they scalped people when the reality is let's get
their land was being taken.
That's exactly right.
Their land, their rights, you name it, their women, everything. They wanted all of it.
Exactly. But that's not the story that gets told. As a little kid, you weren't told that story.
No.
You had to become an adult to figure out, wait a minute, just like I talked about, and I've said it on here a couple times, and I'm going to say it again tonight just because it's of the effect it has. Think about Tarzan. That is the most ridiculous, obnoxious thing in the world.
Until they came out with a revision.
Right. The revision, the new Tarzan, fixed it. But think about, we're growing up. One white man goes into Africa and he beats the snot out of all the Africans and talks to all the animals. And if, in truth be known, any white man that had gone into that jungle with those fierce African warriors would have got his clock clean.
Not only the warriors, but the blood-sucking insects that would bite the actors in the movie.
Yeah.
The show when it would come out. I read a big article about that, how the guy that played Tarzan back in the early days, they never really showed pictures of his back because it was just reeked with bites from blood-sucking insects. It had to be terrible. Now, if he can get past the insects, he might be able to get some of the people beat up, but with all those insects, I don't think we'd want to do that. And I do know that the SEAL Museum out there, there were troopers out there and on watch who committed suicide because the mosquitoes and the sand flies that bite, were so intense that some of them committed suicide.
Yeah. So I didn't know that, but yeah.
Oh yeah, it's in the Navy SEAL Museum Historical Archives, I guess. But when it comes to Tarzan and the people he dealt with and everything, people just naturally thought, and they were mistaken, but they were led to think.
Of course.
To think that.
Of course. And so now, as a kid, I grew up, and Tarzan was my hero too, until I got old enough to know better. But I certainly grew up believing that Tarzan was my hero. Just totally uninformed. But and you know it's interesting. I think I told you guys a week or so ago. I went to I had to go up to North Carolina because my wife's best friend was giving her husband a surprise birthday party. And when I was there, we got to talking about the education situation. And my wife was the last class that graduated from the segregated high school in Raleigh called Ligon. And I asked her, I said, I've talked about it on the radio. I said, you had some advantages over me because most of the teachers that taught you were in your neighborhood. And she said they were. They went to the same grocery store as my mom and my aunts and uncles because they couldn't go anywhere. So everybody had to go to the same grocery store. So if you were bad, it was a good chance your parents would run into a teacher in the grocery store and they could tell on you. So
on the other hand, look at the relationship, the close relationship between students and teachers.
Yeah.
That was an advantage there.
It was.
A lot of people probably didn't look at it like that at the time, but that does create an advantage.
Yeah, I have more to say on that. But
students and teachers.
Let's get Winnie. Winnie, how are you, Winnie?
Doing good. What you think about Ahmaud Arbery? Okay, they got 11 white jurors and one black. What you think? You think he might have a win like George Floyd, guilty? What you think on that? Or not guilty?
I want to believe that justice will prevail. I do. I even though I think it's really crappy that there's 11 white jurors and one black jurors, and nobody will ever convince me that that wasn't done on purpose. When that town is like 25-30% black, I think it was purposeful. But I want to believe, at the end of the day, those jurors will make the right decision and there will be fair justice. That's what I believe.
I hope so. That'll be good. Because, be fair. Good to be fair.
Yeah.
Nice to be fair. It seems like to hear because that's wrong. They took the law in their own hands because the guy was charged and it seemed like that him and racist. Some people just the racist. Some people probably taught that when they was kids. I don't know. And they grown. It should change that themselves, like race.
Listen. I think part of what happens is people have a preconceived notion about who black people are. Not all, but some do. Because I know some really straight up, fair, solid human beings that are not black. They're white, but I trust them implicitly. But some just don't have. They have a trumped up vision of who black people are, which is where you get the Karens from that call up and make complaints about black folks. Or the one that got me was a lady that was on a business trip at a Hampton Inn with her 2 kids and got in the pool, and she got reported for going in the pool.
What year did they think it was?
I don't know. And so when the cops came, she said, I'm going to show you my room key. And they said, okay, so now we want to see your ID. She said, no, I'm not going to give you my ID. I'm showing you I am a resident in this hotel. You don't need anything else. I haven't broken any rules. I haven't broken any laws. But that's a classic example right
Officer-assisted racism. Very interesting.
Yeah, but that's just... But anyway,
No,
thank you.
Colin Kaepernick, he did like a little documentary about himself.
I looked
And
at a couple of those. Have you seen any of it?
The white folk, white people, they had adopted him.
Yeah.
And they're like, so no white folk, they kind of got into all the races towards him, like the baseball and, different events, other white people.
He was.
I know he's biracial in real life.
Yeah, he is. He is biracial. Yes. And he's an awesome athlete. If you notice, I saw two segments of it, and I need to go back and watch some more. And he had to always try to prove that he was a little bit better than other people. But that's not anything we don't know any about.
I heard that before.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
He's a good person. He was a good person every time. And they got rid. They cut him because he talked protesting with the knee and things like that. You know how that goes. They say he made a deal with Nike, and they say making money with them in a way.
Yeah.
Make some more money with Nike than playing football in a way. Yeah, but that's good. I'm happy for him. And he's a true guy. He's for real. I like the little documentary. I said, well, it makes sense. Make a whole lot of sense and things like this. Here. All right, y'all have a good night.
Okay, thank you, Winnie.
Thank you, Winnie.
Thank you. All right. Winnie's so faithful. She's a faithful listener. She followed me right on over here to Monday. Thank you for following me, Winnie. But listen, I think what I'm trying to say is, people, please take your blinders off. Would I, who am a very, very proud black man, I would not want teachers teaching your children to feel guilty because they were white. I would be in absolute opposition to that. But do I want them to teach your kids about the things that some of your ancestors did? Yes, I do. I think it's important. And if it offends their senses, that's good, because then they won't do it again.
It should shame the senses.
Yes.
Great shame.
So, yeah, but do I want them to feel guilty because they're white? No. No more than I want to feel guilty because I'm black. I wouldn't want that for your kids and not for mine. But they need to know. There's too much stuff that came out within the last 2 years that people knew nothing about, like Tulsa, like Wilmington, things that was just buried in the history books that nobody ever knew about. There was Cincinnati. That book I got that I showed on here that has all the old newspaper clippings in it. There's lots of stuff that happened that we didn't know about. And we need to know. Again, part of understanding who we are. I think that's really important. Now, let me get on to this other issue to me that it's a burning issue with me, is this. Giving financial help to people. Whenever our government says they want to help people, the S word comes out and the M word come out. Socialists and Marxists. And I'm going to say to you, I said it before, and I have a friend who says it all the time, most of you don't even know what a Marxist is, what Marxism is, what it means, what's the philosophy of Marxism. I've read the Communist Manifesto twice so that I can make sure that I understand it, and it's basically a theory of how economies operate. And in it talks about some of the pitfalls of capitalism, and it was written in the 30s, And many of the things that they wrote in the Communist Manifesto have happened just like they said it would. Now, does that make me a Marxist because I said it happened like they did? No. It means that I am a learned man that reads things and that there was something somebody thought of that has some merit.
So you don't jump to these bandwagon conclusions.
No, absolutely not. No. Just like, listen, I don't know what I call this relationship I have with this guy anymore. It used to be a friend, but I'm not so sure what it is. But anyway, he sends me an email. The 12,000 votes that they found in Jersey after the election, he immediately assumed the Democrats were responsible for withholding and discovering the $12,000 votes, 12,000 votes in order to defeat the Republican. And I said, what made you think they were all Democratic votes? How did you come to that conclusion? Just because they were discovered, that means the Democrats had to be corrupt. Well, newsflash, the guy won. The Republican won. The 12,000 votes, they found the 12,000 votes, but the Republican won anyway.
That wasn't good enough?
Well, he didn't even wait to find that out. He just automatically jumped to the conclusion that the 12,000 votes were a Democratic manipulation order to win because he was running against the guy that was president of the New Jersey Senate. But listen, so what we have now is Biden attempting to balance the scales. Way, way, way overdue. Way overdue. The scales moved much too far in the other direction, starting with Reagan and his trickle-down baloney that never really worked. Now, I even had a guy come here years ago, I guess it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, came into the studio to talk to me to say, I don't know why you can't understand the trickle-down theory works. I said, no, it don't work. He says, but it will. If the rising tide lifts all boats. Remember that? Rising tide lifts all boats.
Oh, supposedly wise old sayings are a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
You know.
So, but if you don't have a boat, you know which
you'd
is
have no
the case.
concept or perception of what's being discussed.
Right, exactly. So what exactly is Biden doing? He's trying to adjust the economy so that more people can be successful and live a decent life. What's wrong with that? Is that a sin? Somehow, whenever the government tries to help balance the scales, not pick winners and losers, to help balance the scales, there's a cry of foul. I don't know why. Why are you crying foul? They balance the scale for rich people all the time. In here, we give about $100 billion a year in corporate subsidies. $100 billion a year in corporate subsidies. And then but nobody ever says a word about that. Nobody complains about that. But now, I want you to take your thinking hat and put it on for a second. Listen to where I'm trying to take you to. You don't want the government to help people. And I don't know, I guess you think that if they don't help them people will somehow, through some kind of magic, figure out how to get up and get on their feet and be on their own. And I know some of you feel that way. Well, let me give you a little information. And some of this I can hear the phone start to ring right now. The vast majority of the people on welfare, do you know how long they're on? 12 to 18 months. That's the average. If you look at all the people across the country, the average person is on welfare 12 to 18 months. Doesn't that paint a different picture than what you think in your mind? Are there some people out there gaming the system? Yes. Just like there's crooked accountants and crooked lawyers and crooked doctors, there are people out there gaming the system, no doubt. But what I'm trying to tell you, the vast majority are on there a short period of time.
And not draining all the money that somebody else pays their taxes with? Because what I hear is, well, they're getting all my tax money.
Yeah.
Whose tax money? The American people's tax money? You talking about that? Well, what about the rest of the Americans who pay taxes too? Other Americans do pay taxes whether they think the same way you do or not, right? They still pay taxes. And don't tell me there's not enough to go around for the whole government, because they use it and we go into deficits, but we always pull ourselves out of it.
Well, here's the other thing. Now I asked you to put your thinking hat on, so I hope you got it on. If you help people get back on their feet and they get a job, can you connect 1 and 1 is 2? What happens if they get a job? Huh? They pay taxes. They pay taxes.
And they take it out automatically, so you don't have to worry about it. Then when you do your tax return, whatever you got coming back comes back.
Yeah, so if you help them get up, you take them out of your pocket. They come out of your pocket because they start to put money in the system rather than taking it out of the system. But you don't see it that way because you think there's a vast conspiracy of people, mobs of people, running around collecting welfare. Now, I'm going to give you another statistic that's going to really freak you out. 80% of the people on welfare are children. Let me repeat that again for you. 80% of the people on welfare are children.
Those moms and dads have to feed the families.
Yes, and this is coming from a report called Balancing Everything. 80% are children. Can you imagine that? So now, that really explodes another myth you have in your mind of grown people being lazy, just living off of your dime. 80% of people collecting welfare are children. Those lazy children getting welfare. How about that, huh? And what I'm trying to tell you again is, and I want you to hear this very clearly, 12 to 18 months is the average. The average. So that means the vast majority of the people that go on welfare come on and come off as soon as they can get a job. And I don't know why that would be hard for you to believe, because most of us, any normal person, finds a certain amount of dignity in being able to make their own income. That's part of being an adult and your own dignity as a person. So think about that for a second now. So now I done messed you up completely, because I've already destroyed your thought about who welfare recipients are. You think they're these bunches of lazy people who just want to live on the dole. And wait, but here's another important point, okay? Here's what the average welfare recipient gets $393 a month. $393 a month.
Maybe 100 years ago that was good money.
Yeah, right.
100 years ago, but inflation.
How many of you could live on $393 a month? So is there any wonder that they on and off pretty quickly? Because you can't survive on that. Yeah, the average SNAP benefit per 2 children family was $393 a month. It's right here, Cliff. Show.
You said SNAP? That's
the SNAP right there. You see it right there. $393 a month. So, all of you out there who are thinking that this vast majority scary people are living off of your money, welcome to $393 a month. How well could you live on $393 a month? The idea is, and I'm not going to argue. I think it's probably on the low side, but I certainly think there should be enough incentive in the payment that it makes you want to get your butt up and hustle and go out there and find a job. And I think that that's perfectly what happens here. People can't stand around and stay on that because there's not enough money to survive. But anyway, so that number again is 340-1590. 340-1590.
6:43 right now, so you have got limited time to call in and make comments or suggestions or share an idea.
Yeah. So, what is your thoughts? Did I hamper you? Especially people like Ken, because I know what Ken believed. So now I have basically told you that a lot of what you've been thinking is all wrong, and what Biden can do, what he's trying to do, he's going to put more money back into the tax pocket of money available for all Americans. Just alone the hardcore infrastructure bill, think about all the jobs that's going to create for roads and bridges, and those are not $1.59 an hour jobs. Those are jobs that they're going to pay some money.
People start hyperventilating over deficits. Do you remember what Bill Clinton did with the deficits?
Yeah,
he took care of them.
He did.
He got rid of them.
Yeah, he did. He gave George Bush a surplus, which he rapidly threw in the trash can. So, but I just want you to think about it. Don't get so traumatized by the S and M word, because first of all, I'll bet you most of you listening don't even know what a Marxist is, other than you hear conservatives tell you that we don't want to be a Marxist or socialist country. Well, let me give you a news flash. I don't want us to be a socialist country either. And I'm a hardcore Democrat. I don't want us to be a socialist country. And I believe in capitalism. Can you imagine that? I believe in capitalism, and I don't want us to be a socialist country, but I do think we should help our fellow man.
Do people on welfare and food stamps, do they take away from what you make?
No.
No.
Because
we hear that over and over and over. You know what it is? Who was it? Somebody. It wasn't P.T. Barnum, but he said something close to it. But if you tell a lie over and over again, people start to believe it. That was probably Karl Marx.
Yes, right.
P.T. Barnum, says a fool is born every day.
Yeah,
and he made a lot of money on that.
And they keep telling that story, and now there's people out there. There's people out there listening right now, and because I can hear them through the microphone going, All right, maybe he gave me something to think about that I hadn't thought about before. Yes, I did. I gave you something to think about you hadn't thought about before. Now, the only thing I'm going to ask for you, for me imparting this knowledge to you, is that you act on it and not go around and accuse Democrats of wanting to be socialists because they want to help people. It's a normal. I think it I don't know what Bible you read, but the Bible I read, or have read and read, they help people.
And both sides claim the other's godless.
Yes.
You know, they demonize everything. That's what it is.
Yeah.
'Cause if you demonize it, you can guarantee, rest assured, that you won't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah.
Because, they think words can destroy people's characters, and sometimes they can and do, but I think the major population here is getting a lot more smarter about it.
There are. I think, but see, this is why I'm willing to have this fight. If you remember when the ACA came out, they made up so many lies about what that was going to do, and people believed it, and they hated it, and they called it Obamacare, and now they can't get rid of it.
Newsflash. President Obama did not put his hand on the Koran when he was sworn in as president. Did you know that?
Exactly. Yes.
I mean, you believed it, you fell for it, you got the great big sucker written across your forehead, but it wasn't true. And no matter, people were going to battle with that battle cry, battle cry. And
I got those.
Don't they feel like does anybody ever feel foolish about anything like that? I mean, is there no shame whatsoever out there? I would think not, but I'd love to see some proof that would convince me. I'm probably the biggest skeptic anybody's ever known. You might not know how skeptic I am, but I am very skeptic.
Yeah. What I want right now, more than anything in the world, and my sister and I have talked about this a lot, a basic acceptance of truth and facts. Can we do that?
I don't. Truth seems to be, well, what are they? Irrelevant.
Yeah.
Truth is irrelevant to many.
Because, this thing about Biden didn't win, oh my God. That is absolutely, and I don't care if this makes you mad, I think you're a moron if you believe that Biden didn't win the election. You're just a moron. Because you just want to believe that Trump was the winner because you wanted Trump to be the winner.
But all Republicans are not for Trump anymore.
Right.
Did you notice that?
That's absolutely
He's got
true.
a lot of problems in the Republican Party.
Well, in that last election cycle, I don't think I ever saw a time where a major party got so many groups of people that were originally part of that party advertising against the President Trump. And you still have people out there now who are, I know Steve Schmidt, who was, if you remember Steve Schmidt, he was John McCain's campaign guy. He is totally disgusted with the lack of integrity by members of his party, so he's no longer a member of the party. So I don't know, but there's people out there that just want to believe. I think I forget who it was, whether it was Mike or Ken last week, that was calling up to tell me about improper votes. But I'm just going to say this to you, and I said this to someone the other day. Here's what I can tell you for sure as a hardcore Democrat. If I was going to cheat and try to steal the election, let me tell you who I would get. I would get Mitch McConnell. There's no way in God's good earth would Mitch McConnell still be the minority leader if I could cheat him out of it, because he'd be gone. Because I have no use for Mitch McConnell. So just keep that in mind. And I don't think I'm by myself. So when
You probably have a lot of Republican support.
yeah, right, probably some Republican support too, but I would definitely think that he would be on the top hit parade. Now, here's another one. My wife sent this to me today when I was at Walmart because I haven't been home yet. The historians, and this is going to make people want to barf right now as I say this, have said Nancy Pelosi has been one of the most effective speakers of the House in history. I've been saying that for a while.
Wow.
Yeah.
How's that grab your understanding out there?
Oh, there's people out there now that's
They're
kicking.
going, what? You said what?
I know. Oh, there's people out there that I just made them go absolutely nuts by saying that.
Yeah, because they're angry because they agreed with you.
Oh,
you
no.
made them agree with you. Wow.
Said Nancy Pelosi is one of the most effective speakers in history. The first woman speaker and one of the most effective speakers in the history of the United States. And you know what? I agree with that because, and I'll tell you why. Boehner ran because he couldn't deal with the Freedom Caucus. The Freedom Caucus was giving him hell. He didn't know how to handle it to be able to get the things done that he wanted to get done. Ryan comes in behind him. Ryan can't get anything done because of Trump. And rather than trying to mobilize the troops to get them to bring forward his agenda, he runs out of the office too. Nancy comes in. She's got a handful of upstart progressives, far left liberals, and she whips everybody into line to get things done. That's a talent. That is charisma. And she did it where a lot of people could never do it. And look, just think about what she just did. She got that infrastructure. She just got that infrastructure bill passed this past week. And there is not, listen, you can be a chauvinist all you want. That's a bad lady. That is a bad lady. She knows her politics. She knows how to manipulate and move people and get things done. She did it with the ACA. And she's done it with a bunch of things. She knows how to get stuff done. She's a very, very effective person. Now, so all of you can stop screaming at your radio now because I'm done with that. But, hey, it wasn't Rudy Howard said. It was a CNN report that my wife sent me that they tallied up all her accomplishments and consider her to be one of the most effective speakers ever in the House. I just happen to agree. So
who can contest that, though? I mean, it's uncontestable.
And they've constantly tried to run her down. Constantly. Everybody was running ads when they run to run against Nancy, and she just doesn't even pay it any mind.
See, that's a mistake a lot of people make. They just totally disregard women. They don't give them any respect, and they're always trying to attack and belittle them. But, hey, when you run to Nancy Pelosi, you get a different perspective.
Nancy's tough.
She'll give you one.
Yeah, Nancy's tough. She's tough. She gets them, and I would love to just be a fly on the wall when she's in there talking to some of her people. Look, she brought around Kamaya Jayapal, who was part of the squad, and got Jayapal to agree to support the passage of the infrastructure bill That was a stroke of brilliance. Now, there were 6 that didn't agree to it, but she got enough votes and Republican votes to pass it easily.
She got Republican votes?
She did, about 13 of them.
Wow.
That's a bad lady. But event. I hope that I made a dent in some of your thinking tonight with the subjects that I tackled. Stop saying socialists and Marxists every time the government wants to help somebody, because by helping other people, it leads to helping us, because those people end up paying taxes. And if those people are paying taxes, that's more money in the coffers. And listen, just like this child health benefit that people, well, I don't know if we should pay for that. Why not? If it allows mothers to go back to work and now you got the 2 households working again, guess what? Do the math. You are now putting more money back into the system. And the thing that we really have to do, which is coming out now, and I've talked about on here for 2 years, these pipes in the ground. You've heard me talk about that, Cliff, and they just recently said something else about the pipes in the ground are poisoning people and our children with high lead levels. They need to be fixed. And I wonder, on the long haul, what we're going to find out about the damage done to children in the inner city who have to live with this bad water from these lead pipes.
Oh, man.
But anyway, thank you for tuning in to the African American scene and allowing me to rant, and hopefully I gave you some information that will help you. God bless, be safe, and I will see you next Monday right here for the African American scene.
To see how the callers used to treat Rudy, you can go to the archives at WPSLTV.com. You'll also see how, we don't allow filibustering and things like that. But hey, it's great information. Might not be your everyday average run-of-the-mill values, so to speak, but at least, hey, not bad.